take a look at a few of the items in this piece. This is from Rose 32 Studies, number 23, 32A2, excuse me, bar 9 through 24. The first thing to do is take a look at the key signatures and watch that there are sometimes marked throughout this accidentals that are not in the key signature. So if that accidental, for instance, carries through the bar somewhere, this edition actually is quite good about marking all of those accidentals, or at least most of them that carry through the bar. But for instance, in this, we have the key of E flat major, and sometimes an A flat doesn't always, or a marked in A natural doesn't always carry through the entire bar. So just watch that all your accidentals are carrying through the bar. So that's number one. Number two, the challenging thing sometimes might be to play the eighth note gets a beat. And so why don't we talk about that for a second, and we can take a few isolated instances where we can learn how to count with an eighth note getting a tap instead of a quarter note getting a tap. So I'll go ahead and put on a metronome here, and I'll put it on quarter notes. And so I'm using the Tonal Energy Tuner app here. And so if we start out in the first measure, it's got a G dotted quarter note up to a B flat, and then an F dotted quarter note to a B flat. We would count that G as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The second bar is going to be counted 1, 2, triplet, triplet, 5, 6, 7, 8. On that second bar, which is bar 10, not 2, I actually like to cut the tie off of the triplet. Some of your editions might actually have the G tied to the E flat with a dot over the E flat, but this particular edition that we're using here should have the G tied to the F, like that. And so let's cut off or clip off very lightly, not accent, but just shorten up that second note of the tie, so that the third note of the tie the third note after the tied note sounds shorter. So instead of, we might make it, and when you play it a little bit faster, this is at 90. If we keep our air moving and kind of push a little bit of a crescendo through that to lead to that lower B flat, we should be able to get a nice flow to it, but also a little bit of a bounce because we're dee da da dee da da dum. On the B flat, there's on the third quarter note of bar 10, there's a dot, and we want to take that a little bit lightly, not too staccatissimo, just a little bit light, separated. And I guess the rule of thumb is if there's a dot, that does not mean an accent. So I will often take a breath after that dotted B flat. I use that as an opportunity to take a breath so that I can take my next 3 eighth notes, 6, 7, and 8 eighth notes of bar 10, and lead them up to the high phrase, which ultimately goes up to the high E flat. I like to put a crescendo all the way through that and make that E flat kind of a forte, and then come, as the dynamics there say, start softer and get crescendo. It doesn't give us a marking of softer, but I would say maybe a mezzo piano, or even possibly a piano. So we could play that bar 10 into 11. Now a quick breath here, and then start soft. And then you can do two options here. One, you could take a breath after the high E flat. Or we could not take a breath and sort of surprise the listener by having the high E flat come down subito piano immediately. And I kind of did a mini decrescendo right at the end of the high E flat. I also did a little bit of a stretch on the F. Instead of kind of just a little bit of an emphasis or a tenuto or a line. We can use that same idea of stretching the first note of a grouping when we get to the 32nd notes. So let's put our metronome back on again. Let's slow it down now. So let's maybe go around to 60. And so I have the metronome on, clicking on on 60. And so if I treat this as every eighth note on bar 11, so that's the rhythm of that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5 and 6 and 7E and 8E and Now, that's a tricky little passage, that 32nd note group, because of our hands. We're doing I'm using a side B flat like this. We're coming down to an A flat, G, back up to a B flat, back up to an F, and back up down to an F. So, all those notes. So, here's my thought. I keep the ring finger and the pinky a little bit kind of locked in, almost kind of like they're taped together. So when I move, I'm kind of moving them in sync together. And I also am keeping my hand position. Normally, my hand position, I keep it in a resting position. The fingers are curved, I lift it up, and I have a slight diagonal on each hand. That enables me to access these keys here. And also here, this slight diagonal of hand position enables me to play F sharp to A without much movement and any kinds of use of the throat, or rather the register key as well. But in this case, if I keep my hand slightly a little bit more like this, and I'll tell you what the method between what I'm thinking about, I'm able to get that A flat, B flat to A flat down to G passage a little bit easier than if I keep too much of a diagonal. Also, our fingers curved does not mean to keep them like a hook. They should be kind of relaxed. So there are some really amazing players around who play with almost straight fingers like this. And so I would say kind of split the difference between the middle, between the two options. So here's my thought though, originally what I was going to say about hand position is we need some flexibility in our hand position. The starting point is a little bit of diagonal curve like this, but then after that, what we need to do is flex slightly according to the demands of the music. So again, if I'm on 60, and so what I would suggest is put it on 60 and sing the rhythm out first, and then go ahead and practice it slowly. Work this passage in bar 11 up nice and gradually. Some phrasing tricks, or maybe sort of not tricks, but tools that we have available to us are when you have a group of 4 notes, if it's at the beginning of the group, stretch the first note. If it's at the end of the group, stretch the last note. So for instance, if I pull it back up to tempo here, let's just go back up to 112. Now if I take my metronome off, and I'm a little bit more free with it, but I just want to have still that underlying pulse. Something like that. Breathing marks, I'm breathing at a cadence. So when a chord resolves or a note resolves, so and though you may not understand that completely yet if you're not sure about what chords are, we can say in bar 12, after your D natural, we resolved down to probably a 5 chord for a moment, and then we come back up to the 1 chord in 13. So 12. And when I do that little decrescendo on the D, I kind of hold the D out a little bit longer, so we're getting right into phrasing things in addition to the counting. The counting is what I would like to really work on a lot today, but the phrasing, I want to really integrate that and give it as much of a priority as I can so you play as musically as you can. So, bar 12, little decrescendo on that D. and I'm starting the next E flat without a tongue. Or if I am using a tongue, it's very, very, very light. Let's quickly go over tonguing. So, and I have another video that I'll link up in the comment area on the beginnings of sound, which will give us, and also another video on articulation, which will give us some more detailed look at these things. But to make it a short explanation, articulation and tonguing is reliant upon a really good solid amount of air. And our breathing is coming down from low here. So let's take the breath in, gently put the tongue on the tip of the reed. So it's essentially the tip where the taste buds kind of start, right up from the middle, a little bit higher, and then brushing right under the tip of the reed. So what we should do is place the tongue on the, breathe in, place the tongue on the reed. So breathe into step 1, step 2, place the tongue on the reed, step 3. As that air is pressing but the tongue is on the reed and holding the reed back from vibrating, step 3 is to gently release the tongue, and then step 4 is to put the tongue back. Now all of that can make a noise. You can hear a kind of like a sizzling sound. We want to avoid that. So sometimes in very soft passages, what we'll try to do is actually learn where the reed will vibrate, meaning we have a good sense of the voicing of that note. Voicing means how our whole mechanism of our throat, our tongue position inside of our oral cavity, our embouchure, our air direction, how we're emitting the air, all of that mechanism is working together to create a sort of shape of the sound. So if I can feel where that E flat is and I blow, I can get that reed to vibrate. It is not just a matter of biting into the reed, it's all of the rest of the mechanism as well. Feel the upper lip, be aware of the upper lip, be aware of your corners. How much of this has to be engaged in order for that note to speak? If I play E flat, why is it not coming out? Well, possibly I need more air, possibly I need a little bit more pressure on the reed. I have to play with all of those components until I am comfortable to know where the E flat will speak. So, and so you might just practice some air attacks to get comfortable with where each one of your notes on your clarinet starts. Okay, more on that probably in another video, but let's keep going forward. So from 12, and this is very, very operatic. So yes, we could play it very evenly. Oh, and by the way, in 13, the grace note, I'm taking a little bit of stretch there. I'm not being too rapid with the notes. It's a G to an A flat. We technically should be putting it, if there's no little slash line through the grace notes, then it should be before the beat. And in this case, when when there is a slash before the beat, when there's no slash, we would put it before the beat. But here, again, I'm listening in my mind for the underlying overall pulse. And I'm trying to essentially line up those big melody notes, my sort of marker points in the bar, where I'm headed with that pulse, so that over time I'm staying with the pulse. And what happens in between is the sort of phrasing, the looseness a little bit, purposeful looseness of the phrasing. So I've tried to play a number of times for you with the metronome so you can hear how the counting goes. Do practice with that, saying with your voice the counting and then separately with your instrument. But in this case, again, I'll come back to our original tempo. That's 112. So I'm almost kind of phrasing each of those tied notes, dee-dum, dee-dum, dee-da, a little louder in the first one, a little softer in the second one, just to give it a little bit of a propulsion forward. And so let's go through a few of these things. Number 1, in bar 15, the counting. So again, going back to the slower versions of it that we made earlier, I'll slow this tempo down now. So say maybe we go back again to 60. and here's 60 here. And if I put that on each eighth note on my metronome, actually that's kind of a bit of a semantic confusion, but if I divide the beat, so originally my eighth note is click, click at a very slow tempo, a little, almost a little faster than half, half, eighth, eighth, eighth. But now I put the half division on there for me to hear in bar 15 where all of those 30 seconds go. Now let's go a little faster. Let's go up just now to say 70. And then let's increase it a little bit more. So maybe we'll go, now in your own increasing of tempos, maybe if you were at 70, go up to maybe 72. Do that 5 or 6 times, then a little faster. Don't go too fast. But for this video, I just wanted to give you a sense of what a gradual feel of the pulse. And so let's give you that one more time. And so you gradually will work your tempo up like that. Let's come to a second problem in number 16, bar 16. So you're going from a low A to a high E flat. So one solution can be you play an E flat like this, 2, 3, 1, pinky, and the sliver key. The sliver key is actually touched from the back of the key, not over here, so you don't cover things. And when we do that, actually the sort of little helper is this first finger here on our left hand. And we can use what we call a half pull. So when we're on a low A, and we kind of slide this finger down. So on the back, I'm using my thumb, then on low A, to get the E flat, I'll have to go up to the register key. But on this hand, I'm sliding this down. Now that's the first step. The second step, though, is, or not the step, but just maybe the idea is that over time, we want to, like I said earlier about the voicing, we want to have a preliminary or an immediate feel for where that E flat is. Where does it feel in our mouth? As if you're saying a word or a sound, say you say ooh or ah or he, any of those shapes, find the shape for the E flat and try to memorize that. So I'm starting with just a little air, and then I let the tone start. And if I can learn to gradually get very, very comfortable where those notes are, high notes are, when I make my leaps, I can make them very, very smooth. For the time being, though, I think the two biggest things in bar 15 that you want to consider are the pulse, so dividing at bar 15 the eighth note, the 30 seconds, and then the 2/16ths. Make those pretty clear about how they're being expressed. Yum, ya da 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 da. Da, ya da 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 da. If you need to take the tie away on the first F, please do that. Something like that. So in other words, taking ties away will help you to know where the next downbeat is. Okay, so we got through there, 15 and 16. I'm just, again, musically speaking, phrasing-wise, just taking some more time. And on the C, I'm probably stretching that a little bit and then keeping my B flat a little bit longer. Oh, one other idea. So I need to check my tuning because my B flat was out of tune. And so my throat B flat, which is a funny note on the clarinet, and that's kind of a little bit of another explanation here, but let's talk about covered fingerings or resonance fingerings. So we have an A or a B flat here, and normally if we put 3 down here and 3 on the right hand and the low C F key, we can get a little bit of a different color sound. And sometimes you can put your entire right hand down. So a B flat can be, instead of this, can be like this. Now the trick is that after we're playing for a while, for instance in this particular piece, we're already halfway through the piece, and therefore that B flat might end up, we might be tighter here and starting to bite. So we don't want to do that. We want to keep the embouchure at a very sort of relaxed, fixed position and let the air do all the work. But if the pitch tends to kind of go a little higher, I would recommend just keeping your tuner next to you for a while when you're practicing. And when you get to that point in the context of the piece, after having played from bar 9 all the way to that point, see where your B flat is. And then again, like we talked about the high E flat, about the predicting, predict where it should be and start to memorize where that B flat should be with the help of your tuner. And in fact, if you can, let's see, let's put on that pitch. In fact, we'll put it even a fifth lower. So let's try to play with that. And what I'm trying to do is experiment with different fingerings to try to tune those intervals. So utilize this tonal energy tuner a lot, putting the sustain button on here and then holding notes out, matching both the unison interval and the sustained, the intervals rather, intervals. All right, so 17, so you're grabbing a big breath after 16 and then again coming back to 17. Now I'm back, let's put our tempos back to sort of normal again here. So that was 80. I'm going to say somewhere around 100. So this is 100 for the 8th note at bar 17. That's actually a good idea, a good reminder. So after 16 is over, B flat, taper off, trying to get the voicing, trying to get the good pitch, you have a rest. You can take just a split second of time to recoup, reset everything. In addition to taking a big breath, sometimes I sort of withdraw any moisture at that point because it's a good opportunity for me to start softly on bar 17. So when I started just now, there was some sort of gurgly sounds. And so I'm trying to make sure that I don't have that if possible. So let's kind of go through some of this. And so the next piece of advice, I guess, or thought I can give you is when you have one dynamic marked and then there's nothing else marked for a while, try to follow the shape of the lines a little bit. It's not an absolute rule that if you ascend, a line ascends or a line descends, you crescendo or decrescendo, but it is useful at times. And I would say, without getting into a big discussion of harmony and chords moving too much, I would say let your ear be the guide. Maybe a very sort of loose rule of thumb can be at the ends of, like I said earlier, groups of 4 notes or at bars leading into a longer note, stretch that last note a little bit. So now I grabbed a breath there, probably not needed so much, but by then I might be tired, so I might need one. So if I do need one, when I play that first D in bar 19, I'm going to try to make it really hidden, a very quick but effective decrescendo there, and then continue onwards. Probably bar, a breath of course in bar 19 in the 8th note. Whoops, I didn't get all my fingers off. I didn't show you something else. Let's just do this real quick. Bar 17, A flat. I have an alternate fingering that I use quite a bit. So A flat is like this, but I also put 3 down and 1 down. Now you have to check your intonation, but it gives the clarinet a little bit more resonance, a lot more resonance actually. So sometimes I get so caught up in that fingering that I put it down even in faster scale passages, like in bar 20. And because I had my B flat, actually my B flat was 3, 1, 2, 3 low C key, plus the thumb and register key to give it more resonance coming from the C. So now when I went to A, I left all of this down, and A flat, I kind of still left some or all of it down, getting ready for my open G. So from my A, I went to my A flat like this. Now I guess I'm kind of teaching you new fingerings, but as they say, why wait? Learn some of these new fingerings. It'll make the evenness of the sound really nice throughout the instrument. Watch your counting in bar 22. Probably a breath mark again. Let's see. So we could breathe after that E flat, or if you don't need one, although you're probably going to need one if you don't plan for it there. So. And there will be another good spot in that E flat major arpeggio to go from B flat to high E flat with a half hole here. Your triplets, again, I would just divide the pulse. On your B flat to A flat, watch that if these two fingers here stay kind of locked in together, like a piece of masking tape or something, that will help the idea of that will help keep them from making an extra note in there. At the very end, hold that E flat out a bit so there's a really beautiful sound to it and a really nice color and character to it. Think that at the end of your notes, your long notes, that even after the tone finishes, the air still goes on, so that there's no stopping of the air and your air is kind of carrying all of this beautiful sound. Okay, I wish you all good luck, and please let me know if you have any questions. Thank you so much.